Welcome to Stillwater Chronicles. Tonight, we settle into a story about a lighthouse that never stopped watching. There is something about a lighthouse at night that feels like the edge of the world. Not the edge of the map. Not the sharp, certain kind of ending that comes with coastlines and cliffs. Something softer than that. The edge of the known. The place where light goes to remind the dark that it still exists. And the dark goes to remind the light of how small it is. If you have ever stood at the shore and watched a lighthouse beam sweep across the water, slow, patient, inevitable, then you know the feeling. That quiet repetition. The way it turns and turns and turns again. Not for anyone in particular, but because that is what it was made to do. That is where we find ourselves tonight. December, Ardmore Point, Lighthouse, Western Scotland. The log begins on the 4th of December. His name was Callum Ross, and he had kept the light at Ardmore Point for 11 years. He was not a man given to excess, not of words, not of feeling, not of imagination. His log entries were brief and methodical. Weather conditions, lamp hours, oil consumption, sea state. The kinds of notes a man writes when he believes that what matters most is what can be measured. He wrote the entry for the 4th of December, in the same hand as always. Neat. Economical. The lamp was lit at dusk. Wind from the northwest. Moderate. Visibility. Poor. Rain. And then, at the bottom of the page, something that had never appeared in 11 years of logs. Saw light in the water tonight, below the surface, not a vessel. That was all. No elaboration, no speculation, just the fact of it, written in the same measured hand as the wind speed and the oil levels, as though it were simply one more thing to be recorded. The entry for the 5th of December was ordinary. Weather, lamp, sea state, nothing further. The 6th was the same, and then the 7th. The light returned. It appeared at 11:40. I watched it for some time. It moved, not with the current, not with the wind. It moved in a pattern. I cannot say what pattern, only that it was one. Callum Ross was not a man who wrote things he was unsure of. This, too, he set down plainly, without apology. On the 8th of December, he added a small detail. The pattern, I think, is a response. When I turn the lamp, the light below turns with it. When I hold the beam still, it holds still also. I have tested this 3 times now. The results are consistent. He had tested it 3 times. Callum Ross, who measured things. Outside the glass of Ardmore Point, the December sea was the color of pewter. It had been pewter for weeks. That flat, lightless gray that the North Atlantic settles into in winter, as though it has given up on color and decided simply to endure. The waves were not dramatic. They were slow and heavy, like something breathing in sleep. They broke against the rocks below the lighthouse with a sound that Callum had long since stopped hearing. No way. You stop hearing a clock tick when it has been in the room long enough. The lighthouse itself was stone, thick-walled, narrow-windowed, built in 1847. By men who understood that the Atlantic was not interested in compromise. The lamp room at the top was warm. The mechanism generated its own heat. And Callum spent his evenings there, more often than not, reading, or simply watching the beam make its slow rotation, the way some men watch a fire. He lived alone. He had always lived alone in the lighthouse. It was not a sadness. It was simply the shape of his life, the 9th of December. I have begun to notice a specific pattern. The light responds to the main beam. 3 full rotations, and it pulses once. 4 rotations, 2 pulses. I have written these ratios down. They are consistent. I do not know what they mean. I'm not sure I'm meant to. The 10th. Only a single line. It is closer than it was. You might wonder, listening to this, what Callum felt. Whether he was frightened. Whether he lay awake in his narrow cot and stared at the ceiling and turned these strange observations over and over like stones in a stream. The log does not say. The log never says what he felt. That was not what the log was for. But there is something in the way the entries change. Something in the sparseness, in the precision, in the careful way he records each detail, as though setting it down for someone who will come after and need to understand. That suggests a man who has decided to be very, very careful. Not frightened. Careful. The way a person is careful when they understand that the thing they are looking at is looking back. The 11th of December. I have given it a name. Not to diminish it. Only to have something to write in the log that is not simply the light below. I am calling it Lucas. I do not know why. It simply arrived in my mind the way names sometimes do, without invitation. Lucas pulsed 17 times last night, in a sequence I have not seen before. I stayed at the lamp until 3 in the morning, watching. I was not tired. I find I am rarely tired now, when the watch begins. Lucas? The name sat in the log like a stone dropped into still water. Everything that came before it was Callum's ordinary life. The measurements, the weather, the oil. Everything that came after was something else. The 12th. The pattern has changed. It is longer now, more complex. I have been transcribing it as best I can. I have filled 6 pages of the back notebook with sequences. Looking at them together, I begin to see a larger shape. Not language. Not mathematics. Something older than both, I think. Something that does not need either. The 13th. Fog tonight. I could not see the water, but I could feel it, the response. Even through the fog, even without seeing Lucas, I knew when the beam reached that place. There was something in the lamp mechanism. A resistance. A pressure. Very slight. As though the air between the lighthouse and the water had become thicker than air usually is. I checked the mechanism. Nothing wrong. Everything as it should be. Only that slight strange weight in the turning. He checked the mechanism. Of course he did. Callum Ross checked things. The 14th of December, I turned off the lamp tonight. An experiment. I sat in the dark at the top of the lighthouse and I waited. And I watched. And after perhaps 20 minutes, Lucas began to pulse on his own. Not in response to the beam. There was no beam. Just the light below the surface of the water, turning slowly, in the same pattern I have been transcribing. As if to say, I know these sequences too. As if to say, I have always known them. There is a particular quality to silence when it follows a sentence like that. This is that silence. The entries for the 15th and 16th are brief. Weather notes, a mention of a supply boat that did not come, due to the swell, a description of the foam on the rocks, white and thick and persistent. The kind of foam the sea makes in winter, when it has somewhere to be, and the rocks keep stopping it. And then, slipped between these ordinary observations, one line. I think Lucas is trying to tell me something about depth, about how far down things can go and still retain their light. The 17th. I have been thinking about the lamp, about its purpose. We built it to warn, to say, here is the edge of the safe world. Do not come closer, turn away. But tonight I found myself wondering whether Lucas sees it differently. Whether from below, the beam does not warn, but invites. Whether what we send out as a boundary, something else receives as a signal, as a door. And then the entry for the 18th of December, the last entry Callum Ross ever wrote in the log of Ardmore Point. The sequence is complete. I understand it now, not with words. There are no words for it. But I understand it the way you understand warmth, or weight, or the particular feeling of looking at something that has been waiting for you for a very long time. I am going to go down to the water. I have left the lamp burning. It will turn without me. If anyone reads this, look for Lucas on a December night, when the fog is low and the sea is quiet, and the beam makes its slow, patient rotations. You will know him by the pattern. 3 pulses, then 2, then 5. Then silence. Then it begins again. He has been here a very long time. He does not mean any harm. He only wants to be seen. The supply boat arrived on the 22nd of December. They found the lighthouse in good order. The lamp was burning. The log was open on the table. The last entry in Callum's neat, careful hand. A mug of tea, cold, sat beside it. They found no sign of Callum Ross. The lighthouse authority noted the absence. An investigation was opened and, in time, quietly closed. A man alone on a winter coast. The sea does not always return what it takes. But the keeper who came after, a young man from Inverness, on his first posting, noted something in his own log. On his 3rd night at Ardmore Point, he wrote it the way people write things they are not sure they believe, but cannot bring themselves to leave unrecorded. Saw a light in the water tonight. Below the surface. Not a vessel. It moved in a pattern. 3 pulses, then 2, then 5. Then silence. Then it began again. Outside, the December sea was pewter. The waves moved slow and heavy in the dark. The beam made its patient rotation, sweeping, 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 out across the water and back again, the way it had done for 170 years, the way it would do for 100 more. And below the surface, deep and steady and quietly luminous, Lucas turned with it, as he always had, as he always would. Thank you for listening to Stillwater Chronicles, where even the deepest darkness can carry a light. If this stillness stayed with you, if the slow sweep of that lamp settled somewhere quiet in your mind, then let it remain a little while longer. Some lights, after all, are not warnings. Some lights are invitations. Rest now. The beam will keep turning.